This episode of Bookworm is brought to you by the St. Louis Pen Show, June 25th through June 28th. Find out more and get your ticket now at stlpenshow.com. All right, so we just have the one follow-up action item from last time, which is has nothing to do with this book. It's the next one. But did you get a chance to listen to that Nathan Barry episode with Bill Burnett and Dave Evans?
No, and I'm mad because I went to look it up, and here's what happened. I went to look it up. I'm in Apple Podcasts, and Mike, we talked about Apple Podcasts on a show, I don't know, a while ago about how like you had made the switch into Apple Podcasts. There are some things.
It didn't stick, by the way.
There are some things with Apple Podcasts that just aren't as good. Like they really aren't as good. And I hit one of those barriers when I went to download this, and then that idea flew away like a little bird. And I honestly, when I told you earlier before we started recording, I was like, did I need to do anything else? Like, is there something else that I'm missing? That was the one. That was the thing I needed to do. So no, I'm going to add it. I want to keep it on an action item because I do want to listen to this. I think it's a good thing. So I'm going to move it from our follow-up to our action items. And I'm sorry.
No worries.
Sorry.
No worries. You got another week. But I think it's a really cool interview.
Oh yeah. No, I wanted to listen to it. I just forgot.
Awesome. Well, we don't have any other follow-up, so just jump right into today's book.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, today's book is The Way of Excellence by Brad Stulberg. And we had covered one Brad Stulberg book previously, I feel like. Did we not?
Before my time. That was before my time, if you did.
Before your time. And I can't even remember which book it was.
Yeah, he mentions one of them or a couple of them in the book, but I don't remember what they were, what they're called.
I feel like a complete tool right now. I need to go look this up. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, you're good.
Bookworm.
While you're looking that up, one of the things I would like to know is, other than you having covered one of these before, have you ever seen him speak? Did you ever interact with him at any of the conferences you've been to?
No.
Is there any other
I've
connection?
heard him on the Cal Newport podcast because he and Cal seem to be buddies. It was Master of Change, by the way.
Master of Change, okay.
Episode 180. And you're right, it was before your time.
Yes, sir. Yep.
I remember I rated that book 4 stars. There were some big ideas that I liked in there, but there were a lot of like little paper cuts in terms of the style that I didn't really love. And this one actually was a special guest. Mike Vardy recorded this one with me, so it was in between.
Nice.
Yeah, but so it was okay, but not one of those ones that like, oh yeah, I absolutely love this this style, this author. So I'm kind of not sure why I picked another Brad Stulberg book other than The Way of Excellence sounded really intriguing.
Yeah.
And he's, like I said, he's buddies with Cal. So I heard him on Cal Newport's podcast not too long ago talking about some of the ideas from this book. And just thought it might be an interesting conversation. But it's an interesting format. There's an introduction. There's a conclusion. There are 2 parts. The first part is called Foundations, and there's 3 chapters there. And then the second part is Mindsets, Habits, and Practice, and there are lots of chapters there. I don't even know how many. It goes up to chapter 19. But I think what we're going to do for this episode is just tackle it chapter by chapter. Not all of these address the topic in the same amount of length. So some of this we can move pretty quickly through. Some of it we can, camp out and unpack a little bit. But really just a deep dive into how do we live an excellent life, or how do we become excellent in what we do, which I think is kind of a fascinating topic. What were your initial thoughts when you cracked this one open?
Yeah, so my initial thoughts were, okay, like I'm interested in thinking about excellence. I think the premise of it, I was cautious because I was like, well, excellence could mean a lot of things, right? Like it's a very, very broad word. And even in that, as you start off the book, I think he does it throughout the entire book. Like there's this mix between excellence and success. And it's like kind of those two words are treated the exact same as they go through this. I don't remember if he caveats that in the beginning of the book, in the introduction of the book, but I don't think I have that written down to where excellence means success and success means excellence. But I was very cautious because I was like, well, I wonder how he's going to operationalize excellence and how he's gonna move forward through that. Other than that, I didn't really have a lot going into it. I mean, I think we as humans and achievers want to do things better. So I was intrigued by the very title of it, and I kind of came into it with an open mind. I had no idea who Brad Stulberg was, so that wasn't even on my radar, who he was. So I came into it open ended.
All right, cool. Well, let's jump into it here. Let's start with the introduction, which is redefining excellence. The interesting thing about this is I'm not sure that he actually defined excellence.
Yep.
He talked a little bit about what it is and what it's not. Mentions it's not perfectionism, obsession, optimization, happiness, or flow. Talked about alienation, which is the disconnect that people experience from their own lives. And sort of a tie back to a recent book, also mentioned that over 75% of people feel burnout at some point every year. So I don't know. This is kind of a weird introduction. I wish we would have gotten just like a 2-line definition for excellence that was real clean. But I get what he's trying to do here. You know, we're not just making this, you know, excellence is not just for the people who are at the very, very top of their craft and comparatively they're more excellent than everybody else who does the thing. I think what he's going for here is that excellence is something that we can all strive for and achieve in our lives, regardless of how skilled we think we are.
Yeah, I actually have as a note in here, this book defines excellence, but interestingly, I don't think it does actually with like a short statement that says, this is the way I define excellence. So that's kind of ironic. But if you're going to ask me, like if you pushed me to say, what's his definition of excellence? He does describe it here in the introduction. It's mastery that matters, right? It's mastery that matters. And I really like this framing of it. Like he hooked me from the very, very beginning because I like the idea of what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to master something and it needs to matter to us. And if we can do that, then we can internally define that as excellence. Where that becomes a problem is, Mike, if I master something that doesn't matter to you, you may not consider that excellence. But if I master something that does matter to you, I think you would be on board and say like, okay, yeah, like he's excellent at that thing. Why? Because he's mastered it and it matters to all of us in our community. But like that's where my little bit of a hang up of mastery that matters is. But overall, I'd say 95% I like the idea of mastery that matters. It hones things in a good way for me. So I like the way he started off the book with that mastery that matters.
Yeah, I like that too. And yeah, he does kind of talk loosely about it. But I feel like if you're going to write a book called The Way of Excellence, you should have a one-liner for
I agree.
This is what excellence is. And mastery that matters, you know, maybe that's the thing that, you know, should be big and bold and inside of a call out so people get it. Maybe that's what he would say if you were having a podcast conversation about this. But I feel like you got to stamp that hard before getting into the rest of this. But that's where we're going. So part 1, foundations, and chapter 1 here is the biology of excellence.
Will you permit me to start on this?
Yeah, go for it.
Mike, I hated this chapter. Like straight up hated this chapter. Like I did not like this chapter at all. Essentially, like the whole point of this, and you're going to have to correct me because I don't know, homeostatic self-regulation or homeostatic upregulation. That was the point of this, is basically as biological beings, we are trying to regulate ourselves to a better condition.
Yeah.
We're trying to regulate ourselves to a better condition. Now, he talks about a lot of other things here, feeling your way into reality, inner knowing, all of this stuff. But Mike, I just did not like the biology of excellence. I just didn't like any part of it. So
yeah,
there you go.
I don't like it either, to be honest. I think it's a stretch to talk about how single-celled organisms have excellence baked in because they're trying to survive, and excellence is the thing that allows them to thrive.
Yeah. Well, like I mean, you tie it back to mastery that matters, and it's like, are they really trying to master? I don't know if they are trying to master. I think they're just trying to survive, right?
Yep,
Like
exactly.
you know, maybe they're trying to master survival, but I just think it's weak. Like I think the argument's weak in this first chapter.
Yeah. I do think the homeostatic upregulation that he mentions here and then carries that theme throughout the book, that works for me. But tying it back to the whole process of evolution, I feel like is that didn't work. But homeostatic upregulation he defines as an innate drive toward flourishing both now and in the future, with feelings serving as the guide. I feel like you can apply that regardless of your situation personally, and it fits with the rest of the stuff he's going to talk about here. I also did. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Well, he does talk about the 4 phases of competence, and I feel like this is interesting and useful, but again, doesn't really fit very cleanly with the biology part. So there's unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. Conscious incompetence. You know what you don't know, or like you can see basically how you're not as good at something as somebody else. Then there's conscious competence, where you're really thinking about it and you're able to do the thing. Unconscious competence is the top level, though, and that's where you're able to just flow in this thing, do it really, really well, and you don't have to think about it. So situated cognition is another term that he introduces here, which is a term to describe how the better someone gets at an activity, the less they think with their head and the more they think and feel with their entire being. I completely understand that. I grew up playing classical violin, and so this is always the thing that impressed me specifically about the violin, is when you see people playing the violin who are really, really good. Their eyes are closed. They're not thinking about anything. They're swaying all over the place. This is probably true of most musicians, but violin specifically for me, first time I saw it, I thought they were like dancing on stage to accentuate what they wanted people to feel with the music. And then the more I played, the more I realized, like, no, they're just into it. Yeah. And they're not thinking about where they're putting their fingers or how fast they're drawing the string across the bow across the strings. They are just in the zone. And that's like required for you to get to that level of skill. If you are very technically good at an instrument and that's as far as it gets, you're not very entertaining. No one's going to sit there and listen to you for very long.
Yep. I agree with that. Like, I like that idea of the inner knowing kind of thing, that where like you're such a master, you've got such excellence in this, you just know where to go next. Like, and you're not even thinking about it. You're just doing, like, you're doing the thing. I completely agree with that. Here's where the analogy breaks down. And my goal is not to be like overly critical here, but my goal is like, here's where it breaks down. I think about a squirrel. Go with me on this, right? I think about a squirrel. I don't think a squirrel is out there going, I need to be the best at opening up the nut to, before I bury it, or if it's just like, I need to be good enough. I need to be good enough at getting the nut. And this is where like the biological thing breaks down for you. But the inner knowing part, like I'm down, and I get that he was trying to build, he has like a rhythm here between 1, 2, and 3, right? Like biology biology, psychology, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah, so you hit on it. Yeah. Chapter 1's biology, chapter 2's psychology, chapter 3 is philosophy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would have picked these 3, but he did. So you ready to go to the second one?
I am. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So the second one is the psychology of excellence. And I don't know what to think about this one. I've got a lot of like notes in here, which are kind of anecdotes, I guess. So he says that we thrive over the long haul when 3 core needs are met: autonomy, which is the ability to have some control over how we spend our time and energy; competence, a path toward concrete improvement in our chosen pursuits; and belonging, a sense of connection to something beyond ourselves, whether that's another person, community, lineage, or tradition. I think that's useful. I also think it's a bit of a stretch to fit that in a chapter on psychology. Like, I get how you get from point A to point B there, but if you just talk about the psychology of excellence and you're going to say, what is the one point that he's trying to make here? I'm not sure what it is. He talks about our need for chaos, the desperate desire to feel alive and excited. I guess like that sort of alludes to the whole idea of flow as people are familiar with it by Mihaly. Thinking allows us to stimulate how an experience might feel. So a lot of what he's going to talk about in the part 2 is not just, doing what feels good right now, but thinking like, what would future me, what do I want to do to get to, that ideal future, or, future me would prefer to do the push-ups than eat the chocolate cake.
Yep.
I don't know. There's like a lot of random stuff in here, and then a lot of it comes back later when he gets into it in more detail. So you got anything specific you want to call out from here?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is he talks about stress that matters plus rest equals growth. I think that was the biggest thing that stood out to me. So this book is weird for me because like the overarching thesis of this book is vague to me. Like it's like I get it. It's about excellence. I get it's about trying to achieve excellence and the background of excellence and all of those other things. But like I got much more out of the little tiny things throughout this book than I got out of that big overarching thesis. And this is another example of that. Stress that matters plus rest equals growth. The idea of zombie burnout. I think the idea of zombie burnout is spot on, right? Like we're half dead, half alive, right? We do things, but we're left just exhausted and restless when we get done with it. He talks about values here. I thought it was interesting that he talks about values. He kicks you to his other resources to explore values. But again, it's like, we've talked about this before, so I don't want to, beat this into the ground, but it's like, determining your values is a really, really hard thing that takes a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort. And it's just, we can't do it here. We can't do it justice. But I like the idea of the fact that excellence is value laden. It's that matters piece. If I haven't thought about what matters and my quest to be excellent isn't in what matters to me, I'm not going to be able to achieve excellence. So that's the psychology piece. So it's like, I get what he's doing here, but I find more value in the little pieces than I'm finding in the overarching idea of biology or psychology, or as we're going to see, philosophy next. So
yeah, I agree. And a lot of the stuff that you were just mentioning, the purpose and the meaning type of stuff, that's really what I think of when I think of philosophy. So let's go to that section next. This is where he talks about the concept of arete, which is the Stoic philosophy of fulfilling one's purpose or function. And philosophy, I guess it's philosophy. I don't know. It's a term. It comes from Stoic wisdom. Yeah. There's a lot of Stoic stuff in here. He even mentions later on in the book how he wrote for a Stoic publication at one point.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah. He I think it was called Lion's Roar or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I remember him talking about Lion's Roar. I didn't remember it was Stoic.
Yeah. And you know how I feel about Stoicism. So I feel like that stuff is a little bit off-putting to me, but also the way he weaves it in, it's kind of hard to argue with it. Yeah, it fits really well the way that he uses it to support some of these arguments. There was nothing in here where I was like, oh, that's completely a stretch, and I'm not sure I agree with that approach. So it's a very tempered approach to Stoicism, I'll say. The philosophy piece, though, I don't know. I mean, there's some weird random stuff in here as well. Like the more you hurry, the longer it takes. There's when we're overloaded, we give up on quality. I think this might be where he first brings in Robert Pirsig, and that I can tell you I was not a fan of.
I worried because I was like, oh no. I was like, he's talked about values. I don't know if he did it here or not. Has he talked about SMART goals yet? Because he talks about SMART goals.
He does bring in SMART goals later,
and then he talked about Pirsig, and I was like, oh no, Mike's done. I was like, can Mike even make it through the rest of this book?
The trifecta.
Oh, no. I don't. If only he'd Sorry, if only he'd have talked about survey development. Like then, like your head would have just exploded in the middle of the thing.
That is true. That is true.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I guess, that's worth calling out, just to mention that with the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, it seems like there are two camps of people when it comes to that book: those who absolutely love it, this is the most brilliant book ever written, and those who absolutely hated it.
Yep.
I was in the absolutely hated it camp. I thought it was a complete waste of time.
I'm in the haven't read it camp. So
well, you may want to stay there.
Yeah, exactly. Based on your recommendation, I'm not really motivated to go read it.
Yeah. So I guess, if you do like that sort of thing, there's a lot of stuff in here that maybe hits you a little bit different than it hit me. And I think I was able to separate, he's using this argument from this book that I don't really like to support this idea. But even though I don't like the argument he's using to support it, sometimes those ideas, I'm like, oh yeah, actually there is something there. But yeah, philosophy, like I don't know what the major through line is with this chapter either.
I agree. You said it best a little bit ago, where you were like, he covers things and he covers them in a way that you can't like refute. It's like, oh, this isn't bad. Like you're not saying anything that's terrible or anything that I like vehemently disagree with, but like you're also not, I want it to be more focused. I want it to be more like stick to the thesis kind of a thing. And it's much more of like lay the gigantic foundation that we're then going to build on in part 2, almost as if like I wrote this book as part 2, and then somebody told me, or I thought about it and I was like, I should probably go put some like underpinnings behind this stuff. So therefore here comes part 1, and I'm going to figure out part 1.
Yeah. So I will say right now at the end of part 1, this is 2 stars, maybe even a 1-star book for me at this point.
I would agree with you. I mean, I'd give it 2. Yep. I'd agree with you.
But we are about to enter into a whole new world.
Yeah. It takes a turn for sure. It definitely takes a turn. So part 2, mindsets, habits, and practices.
Yep. Part 2, as you mentioned, mindsets, habits, and practice. And this is I think this part is great. So this is where the majority of the content is here. And he's breaking this down into these different chapters, different characteristics, I guess, that tie to the idea of excellence. And so I think it's a lot cleaner how you would use the discussion from these chapters in order to live a more excellent life.
Yep.
So the first chapter here is chapter 4, and that is care. So essentially, you really have to be invested in the thing that you're trying to be excellent at. It says that all the knowledge and talent in the world doesn't matter if you don't care.
Exactly.
I really like he has a description here for cultivating care, and he calls it the interplay of quit, fit, and grit.
I love that too.
Yep. So the idea of quit, a lot of people think of excellence and resiliency, so you shouldn't ever quit something, but that's not necessarily it. You want to have that when you need it in terms of following through on something that is worth doing, but also you need to be able to cut ties when it's not something that you should be doing. And so this order is very important: quit, fit, and grit, because fit is this something that I should be doing? And he calls out in this section not to focus on grit, which is what can keep you sticking with something, before you have, before you decide whether this is something that is worth doing. So no grit before fit and quit.
Yep.
And it gets a little bit messy, all these rhyming words, but the biggest barrier to caring about the thing that you're doing is fear. I think that's pretty profound. He talks about faith at some point in this book, and it's not a chapter per se, but right here when he brings up fear, I'm reminded of this quote that I really like from Ed Cole, who said that faith and fear have the same definition. It's belief that what you cannot see will come to pass. So I can totally see how that applies to what he's talking about here with care, where if you are worried that you're not going to be able to do the thing, you're going to not invest yourself into it fully because you don't want to find out that you're not good at it or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is a great place to start here in part 2.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of the stuff that I was going to hit on. I'll add one thing that I grabbed as well. The idea that he starts talking about balance, which you and I have talked about on other conversations through other books, and the idea of like actually being perfectly balanced is a myth. Like we're not really trying to be perfectly balanced here. We're trying to be intentionally unbalanced, and he calls it self-complexity here, that like we want to be unbalanced in the right ways. And the way, like tying back into what he's talked about before, we want to be unbalanced in the things that matter. And I like this framing. I really like what he's doing here in terms of we want to be unbalanced in the things that we care about. So that's really the only other thing I had other than what you mentioned in terms of goodness out of chapter 4.
Yeah, I agree completely with the idea of the intentional imbalance. One of the related ideas to that, he says that when your identity is tied up into a single thing, it can upend your sense of self. So I feel like the intentional imbalance is good, but you also kind of have to temper it. So with intentional imbalance, you want to focus on something that's worth doing, but you don't want to put all your stock in that thing. And you want to give yourself permission to change your mind about things and not have it uproot your entire identity. I can see where that's a definite possibility.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Next chapter is goals. Oh, goody. We get to talk about goals.
Yeah.
He starts talking about SMART goals and doesn't say that they're amazing, but also doesn't discredit them like one of those most recent books that we read did. So I think I am ruined for SMART goals forever now. Are you feel the same?
So I did like the nuance that he put into this, to where basically like SMART goals can get you started okay, and then you grow out of SMART goals. I was like,
yes.
Oh, I've never heard anybody approach it that way before. That's a pretty cool nuance. I kind of like that. But otherwise, yeah, I'm kind of done with SMART goals. I've kind of moved past them.
Yeah, so there. Let's just pull that out. There's still some good stuff in here.
Yeah.
So the very first thing he mentions in this chapter is a couple questions. Will your contemplated goal allow you to practice your values, or will it hinder them? I think that's a really important question, or those two questions to ask. Then there's a lot of like traditional goal setting stuff in here, like the best goals push us outside of our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
He's got this, I guess, 5-step process for focusing on process over outcomes, which I think, again, is really important when it comes to setting goals. So it's set a goal, figure out the discrete steps to achieve that goal that are within your control, mostly forget about the goal and focus on executing the steps instead. If you catch yourself obsessing about the goal, use that as a cue to ask yourself what you could be doing right now to help you move forward. And whether you succeed or fail, learn from the outcome, refine your process if necessary, and move forward. I feel like that's great advice. And this is the type of stuff that I find insanely valuable. This is also what was completely missing from part 1.
Yeah.
There was also a story here which I really liked about Ray Allen. And Ray Allen was a professional basketball player, played for the Milwaukee Bucks for a really long time, one of the best shooters in the NBA. And he talked about how at the end of his career, he finally won an NBA title. And he shared about how empty he felt after finally winning an NBA championship. I can relate to that. I've shared this story many times before, so I won't share it again. But my first half marathon, hurt myself while I was training, ran it anyways. And when I crossed the finish line, it was like, oh my gosh, I did it. And then immediately afterwards, it's like, oh, now what?
Now what? Yep.
So the thing we remember is the climb he mentions here. The thing that I just described, that he defines that as the arrival fallacy. It's that false hope that once we make it, then we'll be happy. Yep. And it doesn't have to be winning an NBA championship or running a half marathon, that sort of thing gets applied to. I think there's a lot of stuff in our regular day-to-day life where it's like, well, I just got to make it through to this point and then things are going to click. It's not how it works.
Yeah. I liked how he called out cheap thrills come from talking and thinking about a goal, and satisfaction actually comes from the pursuit of the goal. I think this is a big thing that a lot of people get tripped up on, and including myself, right? So I'll put myself in that same camp and I'll actually go as far, like I'll swing the pendulum so far to say like, I don't even want to talk about a goal publicly because I get such a positive feeling about talking about that goal. I don't want to talk about it till it's done or till it's in progress or till it's far enough along, almost as a way to try to trick myself, right? Like that's really what I'm doing is it's not that I'm trying to hold anything back. It's like, if I talk about it too early, okay, cool. Like I got the feel good from that. I don't need to pursue that anymore. I like the way he described the fact that we all want to talk about being at the mountaintop, but like really we spend most of our time on the side of the mountain, and we need to start to love the side of the mountain. Now we're getting into it. So you brought up the Ray Allen thing. We're getting into it here because we're going to use a lot more examples. And he spends the introduction saying, everybody needs excellence. Excellence, everybody. Everybody excellence. Everybody excellence. Did you notice anything interesting about all the examples that he uses, Mike?
Oh, yeah. They're all world-class performers.
They're all world-class, right? Like, they're world-class performers. They're world-class athletes. They're world. And I understand it's aspirational. We're trying to drive forward. But, like, I think I would have resonated a lot better if we had some people who showed excellence that were just normal people. And it's like, look at how excellent this is. Like, if it was a combination of the two, like, essentially, if we mixed the way he grabs a bunch of all these like expert top level people and then like dirty jobs, like we did a micro dirty jobs thing where it's like he just goes out and talks to normal people and is like, look how excellent you are at cleaning toilets, look how excellent you are at whatever this other thing is. So I would have liked a better balance there.
Well, I don't fault him for using people that are aspirational. I feel like that's a lot of people that resonates with them because that's who I want to become. The thing that was weird to me is we hear about a lot of the same people over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
Every time we get introduced to them, it's like he's introducing them for the first time.
Yeah.
The full title, world-class violinist, Hannah, whatever her name was.
Vaughn, I think was her last name. Yep.
Yeah. And it felt weird to me that the whole big description appeared every chapter that he did that. It's almost like these were individual blog posts that were put together. And that was, they forgot to eliminate some of that stuff so that it ties together more cleanly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was not a big deal, but that did stick out to me.
I agree. And what I'll tell you is do you follow him on social media at all?
No.
So the social media is a lot better when you use these big names and you use all this stuff, because then you can put out that blurb, you can put out that little Instagram post or whatever it is, where when you're putting out an Instagram post about Frank, Frank, what's his name in Milwaukee, nobody cares about that post. So I get
about Frank in Milwaukee. He's my neighbor.
I get it, but like it also rubs me the wrong way. It's like, hold on, there's a lot of really normal people out there that are excellent. Can we acknowledge some of those people as well? And this is just, I don't think it's the medium for it. So I won't hold it too much against him.
Everyday Excellence. That's the book that you want to read.
Ah, there you go. There you go. I like that title. Look at you.
All right. Let's go to the next one. Next chapter is chapter 6, Consistency. And this is probably exactly what you'd expect. So excellence comes from consistency, not intensity. So he defines consistency versus intensity. But every time I hear somebody describe the difference here, I hear Simon Sinek's voice in my head.
Okay.
Because he talks about how consistency is brushing your teeth every day. Intensity is going to the dentist and getting the professional cleaning. You cannot beat that analogy.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
So I'm always left disappointed when people are talking about consistency versus intensity. That being said, I think what he shares here is good. He talks about prioritizing progress, not perfection. Progress isn't linear. You may not see the progress every day, but you need to keep putting in the effort. Eventually it'll come. And a couple things real important here though. So he mentions the real game isn't the one you hoped or planned for. It's the one that's in front of you.
Yep.
So that I think is important, and you have to figure out how to apply that to your own situation. The term game isn't, I don't know, like you're thinking about probably sports at that point. And Steve Kerr is one of the people who blurbed the book. His blurb is on the cover.
Yeah.
And that's the one, because I'm a basketball fan, it's easy for me to see, oh, well, we expected the team to double team Giannis, whatever. And they ended up with a totally different defense, and we have to now adapt based on what they're doing. And you may not think about going to work as encountering the opposition like that, but I think it could be valuable to do that.
Yep.
The other one is that the idea of getting 1% better. He kind of rails against this a little bit. And I think there's some truth to this. I'd never thought about it this way before, but we've all heard that, you get 1% better. You do that every day, it compounds. I've used that analogy before when I've done workshops and things, and there is truth to that. And maybe this is, coupled with the fact that he's interviewing all these really, really high achievers. That's maybe where the emphasis on this comes in. But if you keep getting 1% better, you eventually reach a point of diminishing returns, and 1% better is not feasible.
Yep.
So if you keep striving for 1% better, it will actually destroy you after a certain point.
Yeah.
I don't think that matters for most people who are not at the very, very, very top of their chosen field or profession, though.
Yeah, I think that gets to his idea of these plateaus. These plateaus are natural in your process, but stay consistent through those plateaus, and then you'll be able to break out of that plateau. The other one that got me out of this chapter was basically make the bad days a little better. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool way to think about that. It's like, you're going to have bad days. How do I make this less focused day a little less unfocused? Like, how do I make this frustrated day a little less frustrated, kind of a thing. It's like, I really like the way he pitches those two things. So I thought this chapter was good. I didn't write down a lot of stuff out of this chapter, but I really thought, consistency is key. If I'm going to be excellent at something, I do need to be consistent. So I'm ready to move if you are.
Absolutely. All right. So the next chapter, chapter 7, trade-offs. This actually is a really important topic, I feel. He mentions at the beginning that the time when people are at their best and feel most alive are also the time when they feel the least balanced. And this is where I think we get important context for balance versus intentional imbalance. He says that when gurus talk about being balanced, it basically means that you never go all in. And then he talks about obsession, which is when you recklessly go all in.
Yep.
And prioritization is the term that he uses for the in-between. That's when you go all in, but not on autopilot, not in ways that ruin your physical, emotional, or relational health. That's pretty important. Also says that being a mature adult means acknowledging that trade-offs exist and being willing to make them. And the way that he said that feels a little bit challenging in a good way.
Yeah.
I think. I think that's basically what I got out of here. But he does talk about, two types of prioritization, which are critical to excellence, where you're prioritizing within the broader context of your life, and then the other one is when you focus on what you focus on within your primary pursuit. But I think the big message is really just you can't do everything and make intelligent, informed decisions about what you're going to focus on.
Mike, can I tell you something and have you not psychoanalyze me? Because he says a thing
try.
in here. He says a thing in here that actually, I don't want to say pains me, but it makes me really question a lot of things. Pick 2 or 3 things and pour into those with all you have. Say no to everything else. I have a negative reaction to that. I think he's absolutely right. But I have a negative reaction to that. Now, I think those 2 or 3 things can change throughout the seasons or the chapters of your life. So I don't think it's pick these 2 or 3 things when you're 20 and never think about anything else until you're 80 or whatever it is. I don't think that's what he's trying to say here. I completely agree. And I just don't like it, Mike. I really just don't like it. It's like that is so hard. That is so hard. And we've heard it before. We heard it in the Buffett book where basically it's pick your 25 things, narrow them down to 5, cut them down even further, and then that's the thing you should focus on. It's I know that this is the way to do it. This is the way to be excellent at things. This is what you have to do. And my internal gut reaction does not like this, and that's a problem. So I think that's an interesting one that he brought out of here that really made me do some kind of internal reflections on this. And then I like the fact that he ties into fundamentals. I'm coaching I'm coaching flag football right now, and I tell this to the kids all the time. It's like, focus on the fundamentals. Focus on the fundamentals. If you're good at the fundamentals, then the complicated plays are much easier. If you're good at the fundamentals, then the nuanced tricks that you want to do are so much easier because you don't have to worry about the fundamentals. You're really good at those, and I really like the way he brings that into excellence as well. So we've got to be good at those fundamentals, or else we're never going to achieve excellence.
Yeah. Interesting to hear you bring up the term focus there, because that's the title of the next chapter.
Yeah.
But it's a different type of focus.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're talking about here is focusing on the broader pursuits. But then this is chapter 8.
Yep.
On focus. This is really about, I'll say, the ability to focus on something and not have your mind be pulled in a million different directions in the moment based on the digital culture that we live in.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's absolutely fair.
Yeah. So he talks about algorithmic mass distraction in this chapter, which is a great term. It's the experience of being served up an interruption engineered to capture your attention for a short period of time before being served up the next interruption engineered to capture your attention for a short period of time ad infinitum.
Well, welcome to modern day life, unfortunately, if you're not insanely proactive about countering this.
Yeah, but I like the way that he defines that. I thought that was pretty brilliant, actually. I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and I feel like he described it better than just about anybody I've heard talk about it. He defines focus here as concentrated and enduring effort pointed toward a specific aim. He defines so many terms in this book. There are so many things in my mind map where it's like, this term equals. It's weird to me that I did not have that for excellence.
I agree. Like, I completely agree with you. It's just kind of a thing that it's like, you almost wonder, like, did he just not think he had to do it, or did he just not realize he didn't do it? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But this is a really good chapter, and there's some new stuff here. Even though this is something that I've kind of studied out myself. Mentions that as of 2023, the attention economy is worth trillions of dollars with a T.
Yep.
That is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like as a content creator, a YouTuber, I feel like this is only going to become a bigger deal. And I don't know, I feel like there's more and more opportunity for what I am, the type of thing that I'm trying to do.
Yep.
I don't think like if you're wanting to become a creator, I don't think in any way you have missed the moment. I feel like it's just beginning.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a little bit of a side note. So he also mentions like the MRI scans that have been done, which show that it is impossible to do two things at once with a high level of quality. And that is the best definition / argument against multitasking, again, I think I've ever heard. He mentions the King's College study, which I was not familiar with, that found that persistent interruptions in our attention lead to a 10-point drop in our IQ, which is the same effect as staying up all night.
Yep.
So why would anybody do this?
I don't know,
right?
But we do it all the time.
But we do it all the time. Exactly. Yeah. I have an action item from this chapter. See if you can guess what it is.
Well, you already focus your time, so you're not going to develop focus blocks because you already do that, I think. You're going to do something with your phone. So you're going to lock down your phone in a different way, or you're going to put your phone aside, or you're going to throw it into the pool or the bathtub or something. No, I do think
do
it's
you remember,
I think
do you remember the thing that he mentioned is the most effective way to develop your focus muscle?
Not at all.
Mindfulness meditation.
I did not think we were going back there. I thought you had kicked that down the road.
Nemesis.
Yes. Are you really going to try to do this again?
I'm going to try it again.
Mike, this is what, like,
it's
the 150th time?
Yeah, at least. So I think he's right that is a really valuable tool. I think that this has become a bigger issue than it ever has been. And the last time I looked at this, there were tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of mindfulness meditation apps. The problem for me was I found something that was pretty basic that I liked, and then it got abandoned. It was the Do Nothing app. And then he was like, well, I'm not going to continue to use this app because it's not going to get updated anymore. And eventually it's going to break. So, I just walked away from it. I think I actually still even have a active Headspace subscription, but I don't want to use that. I want to find something good and basic. And I'm going to go through the App Store and I'm going to look at those again and see if I can find something. Okay. All right. So I'm not promising that I am going to mindfully meditate for a week, even a day.
Okay.
I'm going to explore the topic of mindfulness meditation again, because there's probably even more options, and maybe I can find a good one than there was the last time that I looked.
Mike, may I make a suggestion here?
Oh, I think I know where you're going to go.
Hold on. What about you just take the short walks, the 5 to 15 minute walks that he describes too, instead of going down this mindfulness meditation rat hole again? Why don't you just take the walks? I mean, he gives you a lot of good evidence too that the walks are effective.
That is true. Okay, so I will do the walks. Well, I do the runs. That actually is my version of that. Okay, but this is where I thought you were going, because in the pro show we talked about Claude and Claude Code. It just occurred to me just now. I could totally vibe code my perfect mindfulness meditation app.
Do you listen to MacBreak Weekly?
Occasionally, not very often.
So this past week they were talking about how the glut of vibe coded apps that have appeared on the App Store, and how GitHub is like overloaded with people having developed these apps. There you go, Mike. You're contributing to the problem.
All right, that's my action item. That is actually my action item. Vibe code a mindfulness meditation.
Ah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. What talk about bringing it full circle, folks. Talk about bringing it full circle.
All right. Anything else from this chapter?
Nope. I'm ready to rock.
Okay. This episode of Bookworm is brought to you by the St. Louis Pen Show. If you love the feel of cursive writing with a fountain pen, or documenting your thoughts and ideas through journaling, or even just doodling, the 2026 St. Louis Pen Show is the place for you. It's Thursday, June 25th through Sunday, June 28th, and they're featuring special appearances by my friend Brad Dowdy and Scott Jones. And they're emphasizing the central location of meeting in the middle. There will be 102 vendors there from across 25 states and Canada that include artisan pens and pencils, vintage pen dealers, nibmeisters, pen repairmen, ink, journals, paper, stationery, clothing vendors, and much more. The Thursday is Trader Day. Friday is open to the public with an evening event of vintage pen panel and pen tasting, followed by a free dessert party. And Saturday and Sunday are open to the public again with an evening pen show after dark on Saturday night. There are 26 classes over 3 days, including calligraphy, bookbinding, stamp making, and card design. There are also lots of additional activities this year, including a silent auction, scavenger hunts for kids and adults, a journal meetup corner, limited edition stamp and sticker collection booklets, and much more. There's a lot to see at this year's St. Louis Pen Show. So how do you get there? The St. Louis Pen Show is at the Sheraton Westport Lakeside Chalet. It's on the beautiful Westport Plaza. There's plenty of free parking, loads of restaurants, and it's just 10 minutes from the airport. You can also get a special Pen Show room rate of $155, breakfast included. So check out the St. Louis Pen Show website by going to stlpenshow.com. You can buy your tickets at $10 per day admission, $20 for a weekend pass, or $30 for a trader pass for all show access. You can find vendor information, sign up for classes, and get your ticket now by going to the website stlpenshow.com. Our thanks to the St. Louis Pen Show for their support of the Bookworm podcast. So next chapter is discipline. And this one, I have a love-hate relationship with discipline. So when most people think of discipline, they think of like willpower. I don't think that's actually something that he mentions in these chapters, but that's really what people think of. And I just got done with the first session in the life theme cohort where I talked about how don't focus on willpower, focus on motivation.
Yep.
And then he comes out and he's like, motivation is crap. Don't use it. Develop the discipline.
Yep.
I think we're both right. I get where he's coming from. And basically what he's saying is you don't want to completely rely on your motivation to show up and consistently do the thing that is important. I will tell you, though, if you're trying to brute force, just do the thing that you want to do, the best way to get yourself to want to do it is to figure out a way to hack your motivation.
Yep.
So I think you gotta use both of these, but I think the whole chapter of discipline is it's an important topic. It's weird to hear Brad talk about it instead of, like, when I think of discipline, I think of Jocko Willink, and Discipline is Freedom, I think is the name of his book.
The reason why I'm laughing right now is because he makes a statement in here, Brad does, and it says, be disciplined and kind. And I put the word kind in capital letters, and I wrote underneath it, this is the issue I have with Jocko and Goggins. Because, like, Jocko Willink and David Goggins, they come with this whole idea of discipline, but there is, like, zero kindness. There's zero, like, you don't take a day off, like, suck it up, buttercup, like, kind of a thing. And, like, Goggins even goes, like, I mean, he turns the dial up way, way higher than that in his books with, like, cursing and all that other stuff. So it's like, but I think about this is, I thought the exact same thing. I did not expect discipline in this way. I always think grit and grunt and all that stuff. So I'm so glad you brought it up, because I thought the exact same thing. Other than that, I don't have anything else to talk about in discipline. I feel like we've talked about this a million times. I'm good to go. I'm good to move on.
Well, he does mention that discipline bridges the gap between motivation and action. And I like the thing he shared about how many people who are committed to excellence live relatively structured lives. That is challenging to me. Not that I have an action item associated with Simplify My Life, but that has definitely been I'm not going to say a focus. I'm not going to say a pursuit. It's a little bit of a hobby, maybe.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about how I could simplify for a very long time.
Okay.
I could probably make more progress there, but
yeah, good.
Okay, next chapter is renewal, and this is where we'll talk about sleep. Not just sleep, but there is a little bit of emphasis here on sleep. Now, I'm not sure we've read a book on sleep, haven't we?
We read Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep.
Okay, yeah. So this is the area I have a lot of discipline, let's say, because I have to. When I was a freshman in college, was diagnosed with epilepsy, and I haven't had a seizure in 20 something years. And that is because I do everything I can to protect the quantity and the quality of my sleep. A lot of people, when it comes to sleep, they just do whatever the heck they want, and then they don't ever consider, like, maybe there were things that I did that contributed to the fact that I didn't sleep well. They're just like, oh, I didn't sleep well. Oh, well. And so I think that's important to consider. But also he makes a point here where I think it's important that you, in fact, let's just go through the 3 essential rules for sleep. I think these are pretty great.
Yeah,
do everything you can to prioritize sleeping 7 to 9 hours. I would say 8 hours. Let's not give it that range. Let's just say 8. Second one, though, do not freak out if for some reason you can't sleep 7 to 9 hours. And then the third one, do not let rule 2 become an ongoing excuse for rule number 1.
Yep.
I think that's pretty great. But I think the whole reason that there are books like the Why We Sleep book and that people should read is because we don't really consider what goes into getting our body to, ramp down and get prepare for a good night's sleep. A lot of this is like systematic. We got, blackout curtains in our room, the weighted blanket. We bought this stuff, 15, 20 years ago, and never thought about it again, and sleep better because of it. So just, I think, you look at it once, you dial it in, and then you don't have to like constantly be worrying about it, but it's absolutely something people should think about.
I agree. He ties back into here this stress plus rest equals growth, and this idea that if we don't rest, growth is hard. If we're constantly in the state of stress, then growth is hard. And this is true across disciplines, which I think is really, really interesting. I mean, he talks about weightlifting a good bit. here, but like in physiology, like you hear this all the time. You can't push your body to the max all the time and expect to gain, like expect to be faster or to be a better athlete or to lift heavier weights. You have to let it rest because that's where it rebuilds itself. Your brain's the exact same way. Like if you're going full tilt all the time and you don't ever give it a chance to do that diffuse thinking, or you don't ever give it a chance to let down and like kind of make those connections, it's just not going to work. So he hits the nail on the head here, and like I think he hits a really good topic here about like don't forget this, like don't sleep on rest, right? Like don't ignore it. I also like the way he calls out different ways to rest. He gives you suggestions on different ways to rest: walk, swim, jog, hike, run, yoga, ruck, whatever it might be. Hang out with a friend, spend time in nature, actually sleep. Spend some time getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And then he calls out something I know that you've talked about a bunch of different times, but take a Sabbath, take a vacation, plan those into your routine because you come back better than you were before. You have the ability to take all of that intense effort that you've been doing, rest on it for a minute, and then you come back in rejuvenated. You come back in more motivated. Like I just think I think this chapter hits a nail on the head, and I completely agree with him.
Nice. All right, next one is confidence, and this one I don't have a lot to say about, but there's one particular phrase in here that I really liked, and that is to own your seat.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to describe why this resonates with me. I guess the thing is that I'm a little bit of I struggle with imposter syndrome. Like I see other people doing stuff and I can totally do that stuff, but I don't think I can do that stuff.
Got it.
So it's like, oh, well, yeah, that person is speaking at that conference. They deserve it, but I can't do that. When honestly, like I have the skill to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't think I do. So sometimes I'll put myself out there and I'll get into a position like that, and the imposter syndrome really hits, and it's like, you should not be here. And it's like, no, you're here. You were chosen for a reason. Now just own it and do the best that you can.
Yeah. I think one of the things this one made me really think about hard is the difference between arrogance and confidence, because he talks about like arrogant people are loud because they're insecure. Confident people tend to be more quiet or more reserved in that. And I think about this all the time too, because kind of Katie and I will talk about this, and they'll be like, "Whoa, the boys are being kind of like they're being kind of arrogant. They're being kind of cocky." And I'm like, "No, they just know they can do the thing, and they don't have the like anybody like having told them for 10 years that they can't do the thing. So it's like they're just going into it thinking, oh yeah, like I can go do that thing." I do like what he says about if you don't feel like you own your seat, go get it. Go figure out the thing you need to do. Go figure out the thing you need to then feel like you do own that seat. And I like the fact that he encourages people, because I think in that imposter syndrome situation, right? Like encouragement is what you need. Like you're there for a reason. Like you didn't get there accidentally. He talks about earlier in the chapter, I guess it would be putting in the reps to do the thing. Well, you've put in the reps that have gotten you either close or in there. What do you need to do to like figure out a way to own that seat? So I think he does a good job balancing here this idea of arrogance and humility and encouragement. Like I think he again just does a really good job in this chapter.
Agreed. All right, next chapter 12 is on patience, and this might be the one that I have the most notes for any of the sections in the entire outline.
Okay.
But I think I just want to summarize this because basically there's the main idea is there's no such thing as an overnight breakthrough. And if you are really trying to become excellent, you're going to have periods where it's clicking and you're growing and you can see how you're getting better. But then there'll be times where you're just wondering, is this doing anything? Am I making any progress? And so I think, again, it kind of ties back to that idea of falling in love with the process. In fact, there's a quote by Matt Campbell, who I think is the Iowa State basketball coach or something.
He's the new Penn State head football coach.
Oh,
He
okay.
was the Iowa State football coach. Now he's the new Penn
Gotcha.
State football coach.
Of course you would know that.
I would know that. Yes, I would know that. Yeah.
Yeah, that quote was good about if you fall in love with the process, eventually the process loves you back. I like that quote. I also like the list here for the actual secret to greatness. Pick your thing, pick a good system for your thing, surround yourself with people who support you doing your thing, and then do your thing for a decade or more. You know, the last couple of years have been tough for me as a independent creator trying to grow my business. But every time I encounter something like this, you know, there've been several moments, I guess, in the last couple months even, where I recognize, you know, people who I look up to who've been doing this thing for a really long time. They've been doing it for years, right? And then he talks about how you got to do the thing for a decade or more.
Yep.
And I know that it's not going to come quick, but then I get frustrated when it doesn't come quick.
I know. I'm the same exact way.
Yeah, but if I can like force myself to take that long view, it's like, hey, yeah, actually, it's working, it's growing, you know. So, yeah, good reminder for me.
Yeah, I in addition to what you're talking about, so you and I are on the same page in a lot of this stuff. Like we're calling out the exact same things. But he talks about the fact that middle-aged individuals tend to start high growth businesses and things like that. Average age is 45. He talks about middle-aged researchers making discoveries and those kind of things. It's so true if you go and look at it, right? From when I was doing entrepreneurship work in grad school and stuff. I mean, you looked at these and everybody talks about the unicorn. Everybody talks about the young person who goes out there and they start this thing and next thing you know, it's $1 billion business and all that stuff. And not everybody wants to talk about the person who is boring and is 45 or 50 and they've been making $300 million every year for the last 30 years or, you know, last 10 years or last 20 years or whatever. It's like, which one is success there, right? Like, is it the unicorn that like goes out and kills it for a year or two? Or is it the person who goes out there and just absolutely crushes it for a sustained period of time? And I'm like, man, what an interesting way to reframe that. He gives a Bruce Lee quote here that patience is not passive, it's concentrated strength.
Yeah,
I like this quote a lot because it's like, it's one of the things that comes out of martial arts, right? If you've ever taken martial arts before, is martial arts is training you to be a very, very skilled technician at inflicting damage. Let's just say that. Like you are able to inflict damage very, very effectively. And at the same time they're telling you to do that, or they're teaching you how to do that, they're teaching you, oh, by the way, you should never do this. Like there's a million other ways to resolve the conflict. You only should really do this if you have no other opportunity. And like I like the idea of thinking about patience as knowing when to apply concentrated strength, having the wisdom and being proactive in making that decision. And then I tie that to excellence and I say, oh, that's actually a lot of what excellence is. Excellence is waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, but not in a passive way. Like waiting in a analyze, opportunity, boom. I'm going to go and I'm going to seize opportunity. And I just think it's a good way to frame that too. So I'm good to move to routine though.
All right. Yeah. The next one is routine, as you mentioned. And at the beginning of this chapter mentions that not nearly everyone who attains excellence relies on routines, which provide structure to our days. And then there is a single phrase here, which is great. Routines can be magical, but there is no magic routine.
Yep.
Mentions the book Daily Rituals by Mason Curry. Have you read that one?
I've not. No, I've not.
It's a bunch of routines from really famous and productive, creative people. And there's a huge variety of routines in there, which is kind of interesting. So I guess I kind of knew this, but again, a good reminder. He talks about how to find your chronotype, which is go 7 days without setting an alarm clock or compensating for fatigue with caffeine or other stimulants. I don't know who's actually going to do that.
I agree.
But interesting idea. 3 rules for routines: develop routines and do everything you can to uphold them. Release your routines. Release from your routines when life demands it. Mm-hmm. And again, do not let rule 2 become a chronic excuse for rule 1. Yep. I see that one a lot.
Yep. Yeah. I pretty much standard routine stuff here. I didn't get any kind of major outcomes out of this one. I know I'm a lark. that's clear. Like I've known that for, I'm 40 now. I've known that for probably 30 years at this point that I'm a lark. But I thought routines was a routine chapter. Sorry for doing that. Yeah, sorry for doing that.
I have a sound pad on my Rodecaster here. I should figure out which one is the. I know I've got that in here somewhere, but that's okay.
Welcome to Dad Jokes.
Yep. I do have another action item from this chapter, though,
okay.
which is to consider the transitional routines. Routines where you're going from one thing to another, like a commute from leaving the workplace to now I'm home and going to be with my family. I work from home, so got to figure out other transitional routines. And I've tried like a shutdown routine. I'm still trying to get that to really click. And I want to consider all of those transitional routines again, whether that's morning, afternoon, evening, whatever. I feel like I could do a little bit better job of, okay, I'm closing the book on this thing, going into the next thing.
Yeah, that's good. That's real good.
All right. Next one is gumption. And this one, let's see, gumption, he does define this one. A sense of progress and possibility that creates forward inertia. There's a lot of gumption traps he talks about here that fall into both external and internal categories. He mentions the 48-hour rule, which is where you give yourself 48 hours to sit with victory or defeat, but then return to the work. I like this idea. I hate that time frame. I think it should be like 20 minutes.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. There's some other stuff in here about like flexibility and strength. Strength without flexibility leads to rigidity. Flexibility without strength leads to instability. But I don't know what you actually do with this chapter.
Yeah, so I actually resonated with this chapter a lot in terms of it's an area I need to work on. Because he also describes gumption as strong yet measured enthusiasm for something. And it's the measured part. So I'm really good at having strong enthusiasm for something. I'm not good at having strong yet measured enthusiasm, right? Like, so the way I think about that, the way I process that is, okay, strong enthusiasm comes in. The measured part of it says, how do we continue this enthusiasm longer than 48 hours or a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it might be? And this is where I get my second action item from the episode, but my first from the book, is the idea of what is the free throw or the layup of the things I care about. So I've got a project, I've got a goal, I've got whatever it is, and I think at the very, very beginning of it, you establish the free throw or the layup that says, when I'm losing steam, when I'm losing gumption, when I'm losing that forward inertia, what's that thing that gets me moving again? What's that thing that gets me going again? So for instance, I would say like writers, it's the like writing every day. Oh, I just sit down and start typing. And am I typing anything about the thing I actually want to write about? No, but that's the layup. That's the thing that'll just make me move forward and help me move forward. I want to think about my projects that I have going on that I'm not able to move forward right now, or that I'm struggling to carry that forward inertia with. And I'm thinking about what is the layup that I can do, and then tie that into how do I plan that into my routine? First 5 minutes is this. Don't think about it, just do it, and then see if that propels me forward. So that's like my big takeaway out of here, and I think it's gonna help a lot.
Nice. So Cory's gonna find his gumption.
Gumption.
All right. Cool. Next one is curiosity. I like this one a lot. I feel like this one maybe the topic resonates with me the most because it's so important for a lot of the stuff that I do and even a lot of the stuff that I teach with PKM. Curiosity is essential for growth. Talks about the difference between like seeking and play pathways as opposed to the panic and rage pathways. Mm-hmm. The fear of failure often overrides the joy of exploration. As a recovering perfectionist, I get that. And then the big thing, though, I think, is right at the beginning where curiosity doesn't disappear from our lives, but our focus shifts to achieving specific outcomes, avoiding failure, and safeguarding our egos. which is why a lot of people don't consider themselves to be creative, and they don't think that they have that curiosity. So I guess if I had I don't have an action item associated with this, but it's almost more like an internal mission, which is reinforced by this chapter. It's to help people find this.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. This chapter to me, I think is titled incorrectly. So he calls it curiosity. And I know he does talk about curiosity in here, but I think this chapter is really about fear and nervousness.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Like, I think if he'd have titled this like overcoming fear, overcoming anxiety, something like that, it's not as catchy and it doesn't fit with the theme of the way he's been titling all the chapters. So I totally understand why you didn't do it. But like, really, that's what he's talking about here is reframing fear, reframing discomfort, being curious about your fear and anxiety and discomfort and reframing those. Overall, I thought the content was fine. Get curious about it. You'll end up discovering some things and you'll learn some things about it. But I thought he framed it a little bit poorly.
I'll give you that. Next chapter, you ready to go there?
Yep. It's short.
Okay.
It's like
it is very short. This
like
one, this one is barely a page and a half.
Yep.
And it's on failure. And that's really because he acknowledges that he can tell you exactly what you need to know about failure, but you're still going to try to avoid it as much as possible because it hurts. So the admonition is not new. Failure is inevitable. Keep going. But he also acknowledges, you can know failure is coming, still is going to hurt. And the things that you care about are the things that are going to break your heart. So he doesn't waste a whole lot of time trying to psych you up. Just like, this is it. Deal with it.
Yep. Well said. Well said. That's it. Like that's chapter 16. Now we go to 17 because there's nothing else.
Yeah. All right. So 17 is on community. And this is, again, a huge topic. And I don't think you can possibly do it justice in a tiny little chapter like this. But succeed or fail, the journey is almost always better when you have the right climbing partners. I would reframe that and say the journey is better when you have the right climbing partners.
Yeah, for sure.
He mentions that a lot of soldiers are more satisfied at war than at home because of a strong sense of belonging and meaning. I'm not have no experience with the armed forces, so couldn't verify that, but I can see that would potentially be true. He says that an uncomfortable truth is that the deeper your dedication is to a specific pursuit, the more likely it is you won't have much time or energy for people outside of it. What do you make of that, and what do you do with this?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you have to be more specific or more strategic about where you allow this to happen. And I think this ties back into his mattering thing. If it's the thing that really, really matters, you're willing to do that. You're willing to make those sacrifices and make those trade-offs, if you will, like to tie a bunch of themes together throughout the book. So I agree with this. I think that like this is where being an adult and having like friends and communities gets hard. Because like you're involved in something and you're super involved in something and then you personally shift and you personally change. And it's hard to tell those people like, hey, I love you. You're wonderful. But like my role in this community is changing. And that probably means I'm not going to see you anymore because we really only had this community. You know what I mean? Like that was our connection. So I think this is a really hard one, but I think he's right in terms of, you're going to spend more time with the communities that matter and the communities that you care about. But that means to me, think critically about those, think really, really critically about those.
Yeah. And I think he even calls out exclusively here, like the exception would be your family. I think your immediate family, yes. But I think even culturally extended family, there's been an emphasis on finding the communities. I don't want to say to replace the extended family, but that's something I think is worth considering. And I don't know that there's necessarily a right or wrong way to define that and like where you draw those lines. But the core issue he hits on, it's like there are all these people you want to stay in touch with. And if you had unlimited time, you're like, yeah, this is important. Let's set aside all this time for all these different things that we're going to do together. But it doesn't happen. And so you have to really identify what is the core group, right? And prioritize that. And it feels weird sometimes when you do that, and you're going to tick people off sometimes when you do that, but just recognize like, this is the thing.
Yeah,
he mentions in this chapter, happiness equals love. Like if you want to, man, I gotta be careful how I talk about this stuff, because I don't want to make it sound like, well, I'm not getting any love because I'm not happy, or I don't know. Like your family, I think a lot of times, the people that you're closest to, like they can make you the happiest. They can also tick you off the most. So, I don't know. Like, I think this is one of the more difficult things to figure out, but it's okay to prioritize your own happiness.
Yep.
When you're figuring out who are the people that you're really going to surround yourself with, really going to be close and are going to speak into your life, if that makes sense.
And I think a way to look at this, not necessarily from the family standpoint, but from the more general community standpoint, is think about the time when you want to excel in something, but you know you're in the wrong community. And like in that community, and you just feel it. Like you feel it's kind of like an anchor that's like attached to you. And like you're not trying to be mean or you're not trying to be critical, but it's like, okay, I'm trying to improve. No one else around me is. Like everyone else around me is just trying to get by or take the easy way out or whatever it is. And you feel it from that counter, that opposite viewpoint. We looked at this a lot. Different people in my doctoral program about communities of practice within engineering, because when you come into school for engineering, the major is so different than other majors. It's like, it's not like other things that like the people who tend to thrive or the people who tend to be excellent in it embrace that. And they say, I'm going to join that community. And I mean, for a crass way to say it, like I'm going to be a nerd for the next 4 years. Like I'm going to do a lot more homework than everybody else for the next 4 years. I'm going to commit to this technical discipline for the next 4 years. And the people who try to stay on the fringe of that, and like they try to balance multiple communities, or they prioritize other communities over that, I mean, they just tend to really struggle. Like they actually tend to really, really struggle. So it's like, I see this all the time in terms of, you don't have to like, engineering doesn't have to be your only community, but you really need to buy in. And if you buy in, the whole process is so much smoother. It's so much different. And I think another area of this would be like the startup community, or like you with the creator community. Like if you want to excel in the thing, I mean, you talk about going to these conferences and you talk about going to these workshops, and you talk about going to all these things and how much joy you get coming back from them, or how much experience you gain from other people and talking to them. And I think it's just so true that you're trying to excel in the creator community. Being around other creators who are trying to excel as well is just immensely beneficial. It's immensely beneficial on so many different levels.
Yeah. And so that's the thing, is like the point I'm trying to make. The larger point is like, anytime you're going to go into one of these communities, surround yourself with the aspirational people you want to be around, there is built-in exclusivity, and that challenges a lot of the traditional norms that you are probably surrounded by. So the creator thing that you're talking about, my wife, by the way, is completely in support of this, but like Craft and Commerce is my jam. I go there every year. I love it. So I'm signed, I've been signed up for months. We have a family member who's coming back from Hawaii for a couple of weeks, and it happens to overlap with that conference. And my initial thought is, oh, I should not go because I don't get a chance to see this family member all that often. But this is really important.
Yeah.
And there are some people who may be ticked off by that. Right. But everybody's got their own version of that. That's the thing, is like, people are constantly trying to impose their norms on you and the rules that you should play by, regardless of where you live, regardless of the communities that you're involved in. And life gets a whole lot better when you decide, I am going to draw the lines where I want to draw them in support of the things that are really important to me.
I don't remember our rating on this book, and I don't think mine was overwhelmingly high. But like the first thing that went through my head when you said about how some people might get upset about that, my answer was, let them. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the let them book. And it's like, because you can't control that. You know that community is super important to you, and you need to go be part of that community because of what it does for you the rest of the year.
Right.
Like it
and
launches you the rest of the year.
By the way, just like not to, so people aren't like thinking that I'm talking about family members. Like we've talked through it, and everybody in my circle understands, right? But I guarantee you that there are some people who they maybe understand that it's important to me, but they don't really understand why I'm making that choice. And I don't expect them to. That's the thing. Like, I don't want to change everybody else's mind. That's exhausting. I've tried that before. You have to be willing to say, let them.
Exactly. I can't believe I brought the let them book back in, man.
Nicely done.
Talk about a win for the day, everybody. Win for the day.
All right. Next chapter is joy. We're getting down there. This is number 18. Joy is, actually he doesn't have a definition for this one, but he talks about it being a clean and renewable source of energy, which I like this metaphor, by the way. Relying predominantly on negative emotions for energy is like burning dirty fuel is something that he says at the beginning. It's destructive for the long-term health of the engine, and it's not sustainable. And I don't think I do that. And the whole idea of that is repulsive to me. It sounds horrible, but I get it that it's a thing for other people. He uses the example, I think, of Michael Jordan in this chapter, right? And kind of like he was fueled. I got to show everybody wrong. And I do think that at some point, he got as good as he did, not because that was the only thing driving him. I think at some point, he did fall in love with the game. But anyways, do the work, let the outcome take care of itself, find joy in the process. That's basically this chapter in a nutshell. Yeah,
his concepts of harmonious passion and obsessive passion, I thought were really, really important here. So passion is suffering, right? Like you've talked about that in many, many times. So it's like harmonious, passion. You love how the activity makes you feel. Joy, curiosity, process, happiness. And I'll even go as far as to say, like, if my goal, let's say I'm going to run an ultra marathon, right? Like I may not love like every aspect of running that, but I love that runner's high that kicks in at mile, it's an ultra marathon, so mile 77 or whatever it might be. And does he use Courtney DeWalter? I don't know if he uses her in this chapter or not, but like she's an ultra marathoner who like basically peaked later on in her life. But like that's a great example. It's like you're doing this because you just get this immense joy from it. Like I like to solve really hard problems. Why? I don't know. It just brings me some level of joy. Am I happy the entire time I'm doing it? No, because I'm beating my head off this really hard problem. But I really like the idea of the joy. The obsessive passion says, really all I care about is the result. And I'm going to be anxious about it. And I'm going to cheat. I'm going to cut corners. And I'm going to be unhappy. But I want to get to that result. And I want to get to that result. And I think these are two like really interesting things to analyze is, or my activities, my projects, my goals, whatever I'm working on, do they bring me harmonious, or do I utilize harmonious passion when pursuing those? Or is it really, I want the result. Like I just want to be at the end of that. And I don't want to go through the process of doing that. And I think these two concepts, if you reflect on them well, I think they're very valuable.
Agreed. All right. Last chapter before the conclusion.
Yep.
Is completion. Basic idea here. You need to finish stuff.
Yep.
One of my action items comes from this chapter, which is how can I add milestones to my life? The inspiration for this comes from the story of Greg Popovich's elaborate team dinners for the San Antonio Spurs. So Greg Popovich is maybe the greatest basketball coach ever. And what's interesting about this is that the NBA season is long, 82 games or something like that. So what Greg Popovich would do is anytime there was a major milestone, not just like 500th win, whatever. But a significant event in the team's season, he would say, okay, we're all going out for dinner. And it would be like a 3-hour multi-course meal. Everyone's locked in that room. They're going to have really deep conversations with each other. And pretty much everybody who has been a part of those teams was like, yeah, that's the reason why we were so close. That's the reason why we were so great. And I think that's pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, throw these big elaborate meals whenever I feel like something significant happened. But a small version of this, just as an example for me, was for a while, every time I published a YouTube video, I would go get myself a boba tea. That's the only time I would drink it, because it's a little bit out of the way to go get it. I really, really like it. And so that was sort of like a treat for me when I actually followed through and did the hard thing. But this is the way I'm viewing this is sort of like that on steroids. So more significant. And I don't want it to be, I'm going to go buy something. I don't think that's the most effective version of this. But I want to think through, how can I incorporate these sorts of milestones? Because I think they're really important.
Yeah. Ironically or not, that's one of my action items too. And here's the way I worded it is, what's at least one intentional milestone between now and the end of 2026? And I'm going to have to actually think hard about this one, because it's like, what area do I want it to be in? I don't care. Like I want it to be at least one intentional milestone between now and the end of 26. And I want to intentionally take that time to reflect on it. So I've got some ideas in my head, but I want to spend some time thinking about this one, because I think it's important, like you described.
Solid. All right. The very last part of the book is a very brief conclusion where just kind of reiterates very succinctly, but very effectively, I think, the overall message of the book. Excellence is not perfection or winning at all costs. It's a process of becoming the best performer and person that you can be. Answering the questions about excellence in your own life is a lifetime of work. The future of will be uncertain, but one thing will stay the same, and that is the value of excellence. And when we reclaim excellence, we reclaim our humanity. That last line, there's a lot in that. And I feel like in the AI moment that we find ourselves in, we could spend hours talking about that specifically. But yeah, that's basically the conclusion. I think it's a pretty effective way to close the book.
Yeah, like my only note out of this whole section was, give your life to what you care the most about. Like that was my whole conclusion out of coming out of this. So now we made it through, Mike. We made it through 19 chapters plus an intro and a conclusion. Look at us go.
We did. Okay, so now action items. What are we going to do about this? I've got a couple. I'm going to, my first one was to consider mindfulness meditation again, but you have convinced me that I should actually just vibe code this thing. Or I convinced me I should vibe code this thing. I want to consider transitional routines, and I want to consider how I can add milestones to my life. What do you got?
So one of mine is a carryover from last time. Listen to the Nathan Barry episode, because it's related to the next book. My next one out of this book is what are the free throws or layups for my gumption, or for keeping things moving, and then how can I put these into my routine? So think through that. And then the last one would be, what is at least one intentional milestone between now and the end of 2026?
Nice. All right. Style and rating. My book, I go first. This is a tale of two halves for me.
Okay.
I don't even know that they're halves. The second section where you get into the specifics, I love that part. There's so many different chapters, and I have so many different notes on that. The first part, the foundations, where we talk about the biology, the psychology, and the philosophy of excellence, did not care for that at all. Even though those were pretty lengthy, I feel like, at least in my recollection, there's not a whole lot of notes that I have for there. So as I mentioned at the break, after part one, at that point, I'm ready to put the book down, like 2, maybe 1 star.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever given a 1-star rating. That's how much I disliked the beginning part of this. Not that what he is saying is necessarily wrong, but I was not doing it for me.
Yeah.
The second half of this book, I absolutely loved this. So if I were to give this section of the book a rating, easy 5 stars. Even though there are some things in here that I don't necessarily agree 100% with, it's very well put together, very well packaged, the arguments are very straightforward, very easy to understand. And that's the whole purpose of reading, is you understand the author's arguments and you decide for yourself what about these things that they're saying. So I was able to do that very effectively. Some of these were very inspiring. Some of these were giving me a lot more context to things that I'd already kind of read and understood, but now I feel like I understand them in another more deeper way. So I think this is great. The conclusion, I'm going to cut out the introduction and the conclusion basically altogether from this book. I don't think there's a whole lot there. But these two sections, right? This is what we're left with. This is the meat of the book. And as much as I didn't like the first part, the second part is so good. And I'm going to rate this 4 stars, I think. Overall, and maybe it's the order. Maybe it's because we started off slow and then we hit the good stuff that it feels like a little bit, leaves a good taste in my mouth. I don't know. You could make the argument, I think, maybe that I should rate this a 3-star book based on how much I dislike that first part of the book. But I'm going to chalk that up to, let's say, philosophical differences.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Stoic stuff in there. And there, he brings it up throughout the book. But there's some things in there that just, it just didn't land. It wasn't even like, oh, I disagree completely with what he's saying. It just feels like, I don't know why we're having this conversation. Like, I don't think whoever set up this blind date really knew what they were doing.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's funny.
But the second part of it, I really, really enjoyed. There's so much good stuff here. Any one of these topics, I feel like you absolutely could write an entire book on any of these. So the argument could be made also that, well, you're not really going very in depth with any of these things. But I feel like the brilliance of this section is that he does a really good job of succinctly defining specific things about these broad topics. And it's not just the regurgitating the same arguments and the same studies and the same stories that you've always heard. There's new stuff here. There's different ways of looking at things here. There's stories I've never heard before that are really impactful and very effective in communicating his points, like the Greg Popovich team dinner thing. So much good stuff in here. So yeah, I'm going to rate this 4 stars. And I think I would generally recommend that anyone in the Bookworm audience pick this one up. I think there probably is something here for people. I guess the only reason not to pick this one up is that if you are even more put off by anything Stoic than I am, then maybe you aren't going to want to read that first section in particular. But even if you just picked it up and jumped straight to part 2, which, by the way, he mentions in the introduction, you can do that. He says, if you're not interested in the foundation stuff, go straight to part 2.
He does.
So maybe I'm my own worst enemy, forcing myself to read every word because that's what we do for Bookworm. But maybe a different experience for that sort of thing. But there's definitely some good stuff in that second part. So yeah, 4 stars.
Mike, I wouldn't have judged you if you would have said, hey, that first part, not a big fan of it, but the second part's so good, I'm rating it 5 stars still. Like that totally makes sense to me because I agree with you. I think the second part is really, really good. And here's the way I'm gonna describe it. That second part helped me think about all of those broad topics. You called them like broad ideas, care, discipline, curiosity, right? These are broad topics, but I was thinking about it from a excellence, success, get better. And the nature of the book focusing my attention on how does this topic apply to excellence? How does it apply to excellence? How does it apply to excellence? That was valuable. That was an incredibly valuable use of my time. That was an incredibly valuable thought experiment to work through all the ideas he was throwing at and which ones did I resonate with and which ones didn't. I actually resonated with way more ideas than I didn't resonate with. The first 3 chapters or the part 1 of the book, again, it wasn't terrible. I just didn't get as much out of that. I didn't think those connections were as clear. I didn't think that tied to excellence quite as well. So I can freely say that if I go back and look at this book again, or, I need to pull something out of this book, it's not coming from chapters 1 through 3. It's definitely coming from 4 through 19. Because that's where I think the meat and the crux of the value for me of this book was it was in 4 through 19. I think about it too when I think about my rating. I think about like, would I recommend this book to somebody? So somebody comes to me and they say, hey, I'm thinking about getting better. I'm thinking about like leveling up my game. I feel like I'm just kind of going through the motions. Like, how could I, what are some tactics? What are some tricks to do that? No, tricks is probably the wrong word, but you know what I mean? What are some tactics, habits, mindsets to do that? And I would say, hey, we read this book for Bookworm. Go look at chapters 4 through 19 of this, or skim chapters 4 through 19 first. Is there an area that you think you need to pay more attention to? Read that section, read that section, read that section. Not like a reference book, but almost like a pick and choose your adventure kind of a thing, because I don't think it ties together so cleanly that you've got to start with word one and then read through to wherever you care about. Like, I think you can pick up in whatever chapter you want to pick up in and go from there. So long way to say, I think this is a 4-star book as well. I think giving it a 3-star is not doing it justice for how good part 2 is. And I definitely don't think it's a 5-star. Like, I don't think it's going to be one of those ones where I'm going to go, oh my gosh, friend, you have to go read this book right now. I don't care if you care about the topic or not. It's not that. Like, you have to be in the mindset of wanting to get better or wanting to think about success. So I think this is a 4-star book. Before I finish my time on style and rating, Mike, did you go find the supplemental materials?
I did not. No.
Yeah. So just so you know, if you're listening to this book and this really resonated with you and you want the supplemental materials, if you do a Google search for the title of this book and like, man, what is it? Interactive guide, I think is what I had to get to. His promo page from when he launched the book is still active. And if you go and like fill out the form and say you bought the book and all that stuff, it'll send you the email with all the links to all the extra stuff as well. So it's like,
nice.
It actually is still accessible you can get access to those interactive guides too, if this book really resonated with you and you want to work through those activities as well.
Awesome. All right, let's put The Way of Excellence on the shelf. What is next, Cory?
The next book is by some folks that we've read before, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. It's called How to Live a Meaningful Life Using Design Thinking to Unlock Purpose, Joy, and Flow Every Day. I am a huge proponent of design thinking. I found out about design thinking, I don't even know how long ago, but it was a long time ago, probably 15 years ago. I've bought into this idea. I really like this concept. And really, we're going to think about how, kind of design thinking can impact, our idea of a meaningful life. So we're kind of on a consistent theme here. We were talking about excellence and success here. Now we're thinking about meaning, thinking about what matters, which I like this. It's a fairly new book. Came out in, if I'm remembering, February of 2026 is when this one came out. So I'm excited to see what Bill Burnett and Dave Evans have to say about this one. If you're interested in this book, one of my action items is to listen to the Nathan Barry episode where he interviews Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. I didn't know about that until Mike told me about that. So I want to make sure that you know about that too. Do you remember the name of Nathan Barry's podcast, Mike?
It is literally just the Nathan Barry Show.
The Nathan Barry Show. So yep. Go check it out, the Nathan Barry Show, for the Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, and it'll kind of give you a primer on, I guess, what they're going to talk about. So I'm going to be doing that too. After that, Mike, what are we doing?
After that, okay, so I have to say, I almost picked a new book, which is very much something that I want to read, but is almost the exact same topic as the one that you picked.
Okay.
So I'm going to hold off on that one. But there is a new book by Arthur Brooks called The Meaning of Your Life or something like that, which looks really good.
Okay.
So I didn't want to do 2 meaning books back to back. So I've got another one, which I haven't read yet, but I've heard really good things about. And that is What You're Made For: Powerful Life Lessons from My Career in Sports by George Raveling and co-written by Ryan Holiday. So this was a guy who coached professional athletes, and Ryan wanted to help him create this like memoir style book. It's pretty short. I think it'll be a fairly easy read. The foreword is by Michael Jordan.
Nice.
So good follow-up maybe to the one that we just read, but also probably a totally different approach to it. So
great. Sounds good.
All right. Got any Gap books?
No, I have Gap papers. I will be writing a lot
Yeah.
of papers between now and the end of. I'm not reading a lot of papers. I'm actually writing a lot of papers for me
Okay.
for this thing that I'm doing. So between now and the end of April, I am knee deep in the world of writing and getting my ideas on paper. So no book, got books for me. How about you?
No, I do not have one. Hopefully I can read that Arthur Brooks one because I'm super excited about that one. I really like Arthur Brooks. We covered From Strength to Strength. That was Arthur Brooks.
That was our last Arthur Brooks.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you specifically to the pro members who help us keep the lights on here at Bookworm. If you want to become a pro member, you can go to bookworm.fm/pro. It's $7 a month. You get longer ad-free episodes with a pre-show. Today we talked about how Claude helped me launch a new YouTube channel. We've also got a bootleg recording. So when we record these live, Cory uploads the bootleg right after we get done. So those go out typically 1 to 2 weeks before the episodes get published. There's a 4K reading wallpaper. There's a replay of my reading masterclass that I did last summer. And as I said, it's $7 a month. So if you want to throw a couple bucks our way to help us keep the lights on, that would be very much appreciated. Bookworm.fm/pro.
And if you're reading along with us, pick up How to Live a Meaningful Life, and we'll talk to you next time.